Coming up this week, what would you like to see in the next federal budget? Also, what is your opinion on Canada's immigration policy? This and much more to come. Hitting the streets, this is Outburst. Hello and welcome to Outburst. I'm Glenn McGuinness. Well, the federal government is gearing up to deliver another budget. Federal budgets reveal where your money goes and how it's spent. So when it's tabled, what are your expectations? Our question. What would you like to see included in the next federal budget?
Funding for healthcare and education is always important, and then also just looking at ways to make sure that we are helping support future generations and being successful. So whether that's through infrastructure or the workforce, those kinds of things are important.
More money being spent on education.
And at a particular level or all levels?
At all levels, yeah, reducing tuition fees, but also funding provincial education as well.
Just a little bit more for local community, maybe fixing up local neighborhoods, more recreational places for us to hang out, and a little bit more involvement in events, more community local events, just to make people come out of their shell a little bit and go meet neighbors that they normally wouldn't have met, yeah, especially when you're living in buildings and apartments. So just more events and local community is definitely important to me.
I'd like to see more help for Canadians that don't make too much money. So lower income Canadians, more help for them. Single mothers, that kind of thing.
Oh boy. I think priorities are education and the environment. Trying to move us ahead in technology and to try to get us off fossil fuels as much as possible. I think that would be good as well.
I think probably one of the biggest concerns remains middle-class security, job stability. I think some real estate markets, I'm not sure once you wade into them how much government regulation might tip the balance into a recession, but I mean there's people now that can't afford rent and there's bidding wars for rent, never mind bidding wars for homes. So I think that's something that they'll definitely have to look into.
Balance. I don't like deficits. I think that that's a problem. I know they ran on that platform and that was they got elected on it, but I think in the long term that's going to be a big problem. So I would like to see some sort of fiscal responsibility.
I would like to see all the things that have been promised to the indigenous people to actually happen. And I think that's a very important thing for the budget.
There's so many things. I'd like healthcare made as a priority or more so everyone can get what they want. I think our wait times are bad, so it'd be nice if we did have, it would address that situation. We also have to address energy and how the West and Ontario and the eastern provinces get along and share those revenues. The oil pipelines, big controversy. I think are native issues and other big controversies and need to be addressed as well.
Good question. In the next budget, I do think there needs to be some fiscal change. Hopefully we can get the budget back in balance in the next few years. I think will be very important.
There's not enough being done for, the Somalian community in Ottawa. I know it seems like it, but there's a lot of protests always going on for, police brutality. I believe just last year we had a couple of, incidents where the police weren't really able to handle good situations where, black men were killed in Ottawa. So hopefully this year, more money can be invested in making sure the police, gets the job done the way it's supposed to, with no deaths.
I'd like to see better inclusion strategies for newcomers to Canada. I feel like Canada, even though it's a multicultural society, we're lacking in how to make people feel welcome and not alone and scared because it's a really trying time. So I think that'd be like one of the major things I'd like to see.
In the budget, I would like to see more money for seniors for care, maybe smaller places they can live or more in-home care.
I'd like to see a country that seriously wants to decolonize itself. Canada's a legal fiction built on the theft of indigenous lands, so I think more respect, first of all, for indigenous peoples and their territories and their rights, and I think that would be good for everyone.
I would love to see the government go off and look at including open source and open standards as part of their platform going ahead for government technology, and that it was something that they approach it much like the U.S. government did in terms of pushing the open government platform and seeing that as a priority. They certainly came in with this as an open by default platform, and I think they can do a lot more to actually implement that now in this budget.
Commitment to reducing debt and possibly a removal of the carbon tax.
The infrastructure, like the roads and the bridges, have to get fixed, because there's like bridges on the 401 heading here that are like crumbling, and that kind of stuff has to get fixed.
Which province was the first to adopt its own provincial flag? Quebec, Nova Scotia, or Ontario?
Nova Scotia? No.
Nova Scotia.
Quebec.
Ontario.
Ooh, I want to say Nova Scotia. I don't know why.
Quebec.
You, my friend, are absolutely correct.
Oh, nice. Okay, thank you.
Very good.
Okay.
The fleur-de-lis was adopted by the government of Quebec during the administration of Maurice Duplessis. It was the first provincial flag officially adopted in Canada, first shown on January 21st, 1948.
Canada has seemingly been trying to set an example around the world by welcoming refugees into this country. But since Donald Trump's immigration ban, refugees have been literally walking across the border with all their belongings looking for asylum in Canada. A recent Angus Reid poll says 1 in 4 Canadians favor a Trump-style immigration ban in this country. So we set out to get your thoughts on the matter. Our question: what is your opinion on Canada's immigration policy?
Coming from Australia, I think the current immigration policies are probably too weak. I'd like to see probably stronger border protection and a more critical system of tests for new residents in Canada.
I think that we are definitely moving in the right directions. I think in the next couple of years, especially with a certain administration in the South, I think Canada should take on a more positive global role, as we are already, but definitely increasing our notoriety for this, because I think that definitely even Europe can learn from us a lot more, especially now that we have, like with Trudeau and Merkel talking a lot. I think that communication between Canada and Europe should definitely increase as far as the immigration policies are going.
I'm very glad Canada hasn't gone down the route of the US, I must say, and I do think they are a very welcoming country. I do think there needs to be more vetting, but apart from that, I think they are doing a very good job.
I think it's better, most definitely, than the US, considering what's going on with Donald Trump and, the I would say racism, because that's the correct word to be used in this scenario. But, I feel like it's better, it's way better than a lot of countries, it's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it.
I like what's here. I don't want to, if they want to change it a little bit here and there, then that's fine, but I really think that we're doing a good job and doing our best.
I think it should be a merit-based policy, as was recently stated in the news. It should be merit-based, but we should be doing proper vetting of new immigrants coming into the country.
Well, Canada's always been a country of settlers. I don't think that's new, and since Canadians are having a fairly low birth rate, I see nothing wrong with allowing people into our country, whether it's immigrants or refugees. Frankly, it's always been a nation of that. But I would also qualify that and say we should ask the indigenous peoples how they feel about their territories being used in this way. And given their past and my experience, they're quite generous people. And Canada would be a safe haven for people in need of assistance and help. And that's the kind of nation I would really like to see.
When there's a whole discussion about Trump not letting in refugees, we should have stepped up to the plate to not just tweeted with the hashtag welcome. We should have actually gone off and included some of the refugees from Australia and from Syria that Obama had promised and made good on the pledges of the U.S. I think there's certainly enough space and opportunity here in Canada for that, and I think we should have stepped up to the plate.
I think this is a really timely and important issue, and I think that we need to take a look at things like the Safe Third Party Agreement, which essentially takes things out of the hands of Canadians and Canadian lawmakers and Canadian policymakers and politicians, because a lot of decisions that are made by other places like the United States are then implemented here for refugees and for people trying to get status. So I think we need to take a look at those things and potentially repeal them.
I think it's a good immigration policy as it is right now. It's definitely better than the U.S. is. I think that they need to do more for accepting, there's a lot of international students who are coming, so making it easier for them to immigrate afterwards. I know there's been some petitions going around McMaster to try and change that, so yeah.
I come from a background of my grandparents coming from Italy a long time ago, 40 years ago, and I believe that we should open up our arms to people who want to come to our country for opportunity and continue with that open policy, and it's very important, or else I wouldn't be here today.
Stay the course, but I think that when there's populations like the Syrian population, I support helping people that are in difficult circumstances, and that we should be a front runner in those areas. And we're pretty blessed society, and that we should spread that across the world.
I'm for open immigration, but I'm also in for them checking the immigrants as they come in. I'm an immigrant as well. And I think they do that. I think they do a good job. As we know, it's not the immigrants that are causing the violence here. It's the Canadians that have been misinformed about the immigrants. So yeah,
I like it. I wouldn't be here if we didn't have a pretty open immigration policy. My grandparents, came in the late 19th century, something like that. I think it reflects just the changing world. This is the world we live in, and people travel, people are forced out of hot spots, and other people can help and things like that. I don't really know what the harm is. I think it's kind of fear mongering and just being afraid of what you don't understand or what you don't know. So, go out and meet people and get involved with other members of your community, and a lot of that stuff will go away, I think.
That's an interesting one, because actually I'm renting my house, and we just showed it to some Syrian refugees. And I think that it makes me really proud to be Canadian, that we have, I think, more open-minded attitude than our neighbors to the south, or at least half of them, I guess. At the same time, I think that you need to have kind of checks and balances in place. You can't just have an open door to let everybody in. And I also think the support that they get when they come here is really important. So I think it's better to maybe let in fewer people, but give those people more support over a longer period, because it's going to take probably 2 or 3 years for them to acclimatize. So to just kind of have them come in, and then after a year you just let them go, which is what I believe they're doing right now. I don't know if that's, I think it'd be better maybe if we don't take in 40,000, let's say we take in 20, half, but we support them more. I would rather see something like that.
We should be open our borders. I agree with the way that we are. We are a multicultural country, and we need to embrace people in need. Obviously, they have to be screened and vetted, if that's the word, but I do believe that an open border policy is the best for us.
What slogan can be found on Manitoba license plates? Big Sky Country. Friendly Manitoba, Canada's heartland. Big Sky Country, friendly Manitoba, Canada's heartland.
Big Sky Country.
Friendly Manitoba.
Friendly Manitoba? No plates around. Canada's heartland.
Friendly Manitoba? Question mark.
Friendly Manitoba. Exclamation point.
Exclamation point.
The word friendly can be found on the left of Manitoba's name on provincial motor vehicle license plates, giving it the name Friendly Manitoba.
Leading up to and following the 2015 federal election, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau promised Indigenous leaders across the country to rebuild their relationship based on mutual respect and cooperation. The Liberals have promised $8.4 billion over 5 years to help improve the quality of life in Indigenous communities, as well as getting the ball rolling on an inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women. But many still think there's a long way to go. So we put the question to you. How would you rate the federal government's performance on Indigenous issues?
It's a complicated issue, and I don't know if I would give them a rating per se, but I think it's important that we look at the TRC and try to implement those things as effectively as possible.
I think Justin Trudeau has done a really great job of addressing that issue during his political campaign. I think it's a very important subject. Just as with the bilingual of being able to speak French and English, the Aboriginal and the Indigenous people are also part of this land before we got here, and it's important to honor those traditions as well.
What I've heard is that they've gone back on some of the environmental concerns in terms of the pipelines, and I would say that affects a lot of the Indigenous peoples. So in that particular matter, I'm concerned. Outside of that, I don't know enough about what's been happening with it, specifics, I mean.
I get a sense that maybe some of the actions following the promises are yet to materialize, and I base that on what I'm hearing on the news from some Aboriginal leaders and things. They seem to be sensing that it's not happening fast enough. So, you know, I think I trust their opinion on that. But it's things in politics, things take time. They're slow.
That's a really tough one because they're so entrenched and they've been going on for so long. That's not an excuse, it's a reason. But I guess if I was going to give them a mark, a report card, probably a B, but with the suggestion that that might go downwards to a B- or even a C. For some reason, the business alone of, you know, sort of secondary or inferior housing for Aboriginals, it's absolutely endless. It's been going on for decades and decades, and I think people just sort of look out, there's another example of, like, you know, squalor and plumbing that doesn't work and poor drinking water. I don't understand. It's not rocket science. I don't understand why it can't be fixed.
Not very well, but I think definitely better now than in the past, where we didn't talk about it at all in the past. I think the fact that we're having the conversation now is really good. And but again, there's, you know, you're going from nothing to something. It's better. It's progress, but I think there's definitely a long way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think it had been not addressed for so long. I think Mr. Trudeau has it as a high priority, and I think he is addressing it. I mean, things take time in government, but I think that he is well aware of the situation and is aware of it and trying to address it.
On Indigenous issues, I think they've done quite well. I think more scrutiny is probably needed with the payments that go to reservations, but currently I don't think it's too bad. Probably more support for health, mental health, and probably drug addictions, yeah.
I think it's a little bit surface level. I think we're doing a lot of talking, but not a lot of doing. And I think, yes, we made the apologies. Yes, we said we're going to start making reconciliation practices. But I think now there needs to be more investment in infrastructure, like say on the reserves and stuff. Like some of them are living in third world level, like livelihood, like lives. And I'm just like, that's not, if we're Canada and we're supposed to be like a first world nation, that's not right. Like people need to have adequate access to water. You know what I mean? So I think we need to stop talking and do a lot more doing.
Coming from Australia, Canada definitely does a better job with its Indigenous here. Going to the reserves, I know there are some issues regarding transparency, but I do think there needs to be more funding for the Aboriginals, especially for mental health and drugs.
I think that the government really needs to do a better job. I think that like the steps that they're taking so far are good, and I think that Canada's really good at sort of trying to make things better and work towards, but I think there's still like a lot of improvement that needs to be done. Just even if you go into the community, Indigenous communities and stuff like that, they're still not getting treated the same. There's still so much going on that needs improvement, and I think that the government needs to be better at recognizing that and like taking further steps.
I think with especially Canada's 150th birthday, like marking this milestone, like it's all around the city, but it's not only a time of celebration, I think it really needs to be a time of remembrance, which we are, like we're definitely, there's been a catalyst for remembrance, especially with the 150 celebration as well, as far as like victims to residential schools as well, but as my colleagues have said, like I definitely agree there needs to be more action, especially now that we have another 150 years coming up. I think that especially with the Trudeau government, we need to see these promises, as many people have been saying, these promises executed. And I know we've just approached about a year and a half now with we're approaching the 2-year mark, I guess. So as far as like that's an election promise, right? So I'd like to see it a little bit more executed.
I think they're trying. I think it's a bigger project than anyone ever imagined, and so people have to be patient. There's always going to be more we can do.
As of now, I don't particularly see any issues. I think the federal government is doing what they said they would do. They are following up with some of their promises. Not familiar with all of them, but I'm pretty sure whatever they said they're doing, they're probably going to do.
Indigenous issues has been a disaster in Canada. We give lip service to Indigenous people. We use words, but we don't follow through with actual practices. Canada's basically a colonial nation built on mining and resource extraction of other people's territories, and this continues into the present. And it really must be stopped, not only because it's the wrong thing to do morally, but it's also the wrong thing to do for future generations and the health of the planet.
They speak well, but they haven't actually done a lot. So certainly it seems that the mining companies in our northern territories have done a lot better under this government than the Aboriginal people, who have received a lot of promises but not necessarily gotten the opportunity to go off and to have those promises met. Certain things on education, clean water, just basic human rights that Canadians expect are not being delivered for many of our Aboriginal people.
We're now witnessing the federal leadership race of 2 parties in Canada, the Conservative Party and the NDP. Some of the candidates are taking the time to brush up on their French in hopes of increasing their chances of winning. So we took to the streets with this question: is it important to you if a federal party leader is fully bilingual?
I definitely think that it's really important, especially with the Conservative race coming up for the leadership, and you got Kevin O'Leary, who doesn't even, I believe he said that, doesn't even speak, he's not bilingual. And if you have a representative of our entire country, you need someone who embodies, these communities, especially with, the Official Languages Act, that's why it's in place, right? So I think that's very important. That your governmental representatives, if they're representing a democracy, that you get the people that need the representation that they need with the OLA. And being bilingual is not only a part of our identity, but especially a part of inclusive civic nationality and ethnic nationalism as well, and building the bridges between that.
I think that is important. I don't think necessarily have to be fully to start with, but be willing to actually take the courses and work towards it.
He's got to address the entire country, and we're a bilingual country, so it only makes sense. If you can't speak French, how are you going to talk to French people?
Yes.
Why do you think that?
Well, because we're a bilingual country, so whoever's leading our country should be fully bilingual.
Yes. Why do you say that?
Just because French and English are both Canada's official languages, and if they're going to be representing people, they should be able to speak both.
Saying that, I myself do not have a bilingual background, but I believe if you are a leader of a federal party in Canada, you should be able to talk to both English and French-speaking parties and people of our country.
Absolutely. Actually, it'd be great if they were trilingual, or having more languages, but French and English are our official languages, and I think they have to be able to communicate with that portion of the population.
Yes.
Why do you say that?
Well, other than the obvious, our official languages, I think it is really a gesture of inclusivity, and that we're more than 2 official languages, but at least that's a good start, right? There's many people that have 3 or 4.
To me personally, it's not important, but I think it's a good representation of the country. But I don't know if it's fully bilingual necessarily, if that's necessary, but I think that knowing a little bit, being able to say a few phrases or that is probably important.
At least be able to function at a bare minimum.
I just think like when they go abroad to be able to say a few phrases and kind of that, maybe not necessarily fully bilingual, yeah.
Yeah, I do, because then it provides accessibility to like more than just one group of people, so just English speakers or French speakers, yeah.
Yeah, I think representing Canadians, one should speak more than one language, and I would argue that even more than English and French, where possible, would be a great asset. But I think, yes, a Canadian leader, I think, could make every effort, if they're serious about leading this nation, of learning both official languages. And in fact, I would say, since we're here in Ottawa, they should learn Algonquin too, in a perfect world. But I think, yeah, the more accessible we are to the population and the more that you can converse with the people you represent, the better off we are.
I think so, yeah. I think it's really important. I think I wouldn't want to have a prime minister who couldn't speak both languages. I was going to say French. That's the issue, I guess, is that they're not French. They don't speak French fluently. But no, I think it's really important to honor both languages and both cultures, because they founded Canada, and speak Indigenous languages as well.
Yes, it certainly matters. I think that to represent Canada without having a fully bilingual prime minister would be a complete shame. I think anyone who's running for the race, either for the Conservatives or the NDP, should be fully bilingual now, not something where they might be bilingual whenever the election comes. They should be ready to run now as to be able to represent all of Canada.
Not really. As long as they have a decent, better than decent translator. If he gets his point across and it's a valid point, it doesn't matter if he can speak French, Chinese, Mandarin, English, whatever. If his point gets across, then that's the important thing.
Which province is home to North America's shortest railway in history? Ontario. PEI. British Columbia.
PEI. British Columbia.
PEI.
PEI.
Ontario?
It's Ontario.
Oh.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet your dog.
What's his name? This is Stella.
The Thousand Island Railway, which ran in Gananoque, Ontario, is North America's shortest railway in history, just 5.43 kilometers or 3.32 miles. That's all for this episode of Outburst. Like what you see? Well, you can watch more episodes on our website at www.cpac.ca, on our CPAC TV To Go app, and also on our YouTube channel. You can also join the conversation via social media on Twitter and Instagram at CPAC_TV. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and on behalf of all my colleagues at the Cable Public Affairs channel, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.